And I'm getting the nod from Johnny. I'm taking that as a signal we are live. Whisper Nation, what's going on? It's Friday the 13th. We are the Fantasy Whispers. I'm your host, Austin R. Sear. You can find me on Twitter exactly there, Austin_R_Sear. We got Big Travie in the house. Catch him on Twitter at Big Travie TFW. What's good, my man? And
Going
of
on?
course, Johnny Game Time Hicks, the man that makes it all a reality. Catch him on Twitter at Johnny. Just tell the people where they can catch you on Twitter.
Johnny
All your
underscore game time.
there we go. We are the Fantasy Whispers here. This is the News and Nuggets episode where we are going around the league, sharing with you updates to help get you ready for your weekend matchup here. Man, we are in, Travis just said it, the middle of November. The trade deadline is coming up for you. We're in that weird spot in the season where some teams might have started to dip out thinking they don't have a shot yet. But let me tell you, every weekend is a new opportunity. Stay with it. You have a league winner emerging in the waiver wire pretty much every week from here on out. People are apathetic. People have already given up hope. Don't let that be you. So before we start jumping into some of these news and nuggets, I want to ask Big Travie and Johnny Game Time Hicks here if anything about this point in the season elicits any pearls of wisdom or anything you'd like to share with Whisper Nation as we're coming into that home stretch of the regular season. Travis, is there anything that comes to mind right now?
We've said it a couple weeks in a row now, but you can't beat this one too bad. We've got so much data now. We've compiled so many data points. It's time to start really leaning into those. The matchups are better than they have been as far as predicting what we think will happen, and that's cornerback, wide receiver matchups. You can look at tight ends versus linebackers and things of that nature, safeties and whatnot. You can also look at volume over the last couple weeks and taking snapshots, not just assuming that one defense is bad because it shows bad in that column on your app, but digging into the last 4 weeks, 3 weeks, and we do a lot of that for you, and we bring it to you in the matchup column, which is on the website. We do it in the matchup show, which is on all the podcast apps. So just make sure you're sticking with us and realizing that the data is better than ever as we keep going along.
100%. And a quick little point on that, maybe you looking on your NFL.com app and it says the Bengals are going up against this defense. It's the fifth most tough defense against wide receivers. But maybe you've got the third wide receiver who's going to be going up against the third corner. And if you do a deep dive into that defense, maybe their third cornerback is garbage and it's actually a sneaky smash spot. So stay tuned to the Fantasy Whispers. Like and subscribe to catch those in-depth bits of content coming your way for deeper analysis and finding real ways to scrape the barrel and give yourself an edge. Johnny Game Time Hicks, how about you as we're heading into this middle of the November timetable? What's coming across your mind? What would you like to share with Whisper Nation?
Just kind of piggybacking off of that and extending to the fact of don't be nervous. Play each week as that's the last week, right? So there are only 4 weeks left. Let's just knock it out. We'll win each one. And you do that by what Big Travie was saying and what you're saying, as far as matchups, but also not being afraid to, sit maybe a so-called, guy that you would normally play for a better matchup. If you do the research and trust your gut, then go for that and do that. We got to remind ourselves we play this for fun, and so what's more exciting or more fun than getting those guys and being right on that matchup or whatever it is and playing the right guy. That's as part of this game. As much as people don't want to talk about that, this game is a lot like chess, and you play certain matchups, you make certain moves based on what's going on in the NFL. And if you do that, you give yourself a better chance to win.
Those are great points, and it gets weird at this point in the season. I'll kind of sum up and tie together the points that you made with my own take on that. And we are so far removed from where we were when we were drafting our teams back in August. So many changes have happened, not just to personnel on every single team, the play styles, the data that's come out, the way Travis alluded to, hierarchies in the rosters have emerged. And also it's Seattle, for instance, is such an interesting one to point at. We've had Carlos Hyde, who's been a world beater pretty much not necessarily a world beater, but he's been a really good running back for you this whole time. And Carlos Hyde is there. And now the last 3 weeks, DJ Dallas, this rookie out of fourth rounder, is coming in there. And if you've been starting him, you've been averaging, double-digit points the entire time he's been playing. But this is like a no-name that still might be available on your waiver wire right now because it's been this delayed news of is Carson going to play, is he not going to play, and he might not miss any time, and he's missed almost a month. So keep an eye on that, and values change. Teams might have spent all their WAB. What once was, spending 10 WAB on a kicker wasn't a big deal potentially, but now when half your league doesn't have any WAB at all, 1, 2, 3, 5 WAB becomes a lot more valuable. Quarterbacks weren't as valuable at the beginning of the year. Quarterbacks are more valuable now. It's running backs. A fringe RB3 running back held more value at the beginning of the season than they did now. It's just how much has changed. Keep an eye on that because it gives you an opportunity to really find an edge as the playoffs are coming up. So with all of that, all those words, we got some more of them coming up here for you, but specifically for the news and nuggets bouncing around team to team, helping you separate some of just this noise from the things you really want to lean into. Johnny, we're going to start with Mr. Arizona Cardinals himself here. We've got that wonderful Cardinals hat on, and I know a David Johnson jersey from years past there with Cardinals. But moving to their current running back, Johnny, Kenyon Drake is a game-time decision for Week 10 against the Bills. Coach Cliff Kingsbury said they want to make sure he feels good pregame, and he can do what he's best at. If not, he's not going to go. If he can, he will be going. What are you looking at right now from the Arizona Cardinals backfield? What's your prognosis, and how would you handle Kenyon Drake or Chase Edmonds based on the news that we could expect now and over the next day or so?
You kind of hope that he can't give it a go, right? Like, I'll be honest, because here's the reality. If Drake does give it a go, we don't know what his workload is going to be. Yeah, they say, we want to make sure that, he can handle his normal workload, but I can't imagine that injury looked really bad, and I understand that, they wouldn't put him out there unless he, in theory is healthy enough to play. It just, without Drake in the lineup, you could say Chase Edmonds is, he has RB1 potential. He's going to get RB1 usage. With Drake in the, potentially being able to give it a go, this also puts in a pickle because Drake is playing at 220, I think it's 205 is the kickoff. So if you don't have both Drake and Edmonds, then you're leaving yourself up to a potential of saying, hey, like if let's say you were just able to pick up Edmonds off of the waiver, right? And you're planning on playing him this week, and then you have a morning running back that is playing, and now you have to make that decision. It makes it a lot more difficult not knowing whether or not Drake is going to play. I don't have a real good leaning one way or another from what I'm reading. It's truly kind of a game time decision. So I don't know.
Game time, waiting on game time. Keep an eye out for that news because it's going to make major impacts for you. Travi in the chat right now saying some good things. We've got 10 watching us live. Whisper Nation, thanks for tagging along and spending your Friday afternoon with us. If you haven't already hit that thumbs up button, please give that a thumbs up. Helps our algorithm grow and do what we love to do most here. We're going to be answering some of your questions along as well, so feel free to throw them out at us. We'll do our best to address them on air. We might hit you up in the chats. We do want to make sure we can get through all of the news and nuggets from around the league before we log off here today, though. So make sure you've liked and subscribed. Hit us up in the DMs, too, if for whatever reason we don't get to your question. We'll be answering those all throughout the weekend, pretty much every day. And our live pregame show, 90 minutes before kickoff on Sunday morning, 90 minutes before the morning games. Make sure you've logged on to YouTube to catch all of Johnny and Travis's insights coming your way. You can ask all of your questions right before kickoff then as well. Johnny, last thing, any on the Cardinals? Are you liking the Cardinals defense at all? Budda Baker is supposed to be coming back this week. Are you feeling good about the Bills, or is this just a defense to stay away from right now?
Yeah, continue to monitor the Budda Baker because if he does not ultimately give it a go, that's a huge bonus for this Bills offense, who I already think is going to be able to pass the ball and move the ball on the Cardinals. But, man, we have seen one game without Budda Baker, and he is literally the cog that makes this defense go. And so, yeah, definitely we'll monitor that for sure on Sunday if he's going to. But they're expecting him to play, so.
Big Travi, I want to ask you here in the chat. We've got K. Ellis Talks asking about Which tight end option do you like the best rest of season in a PPR format? Hooper, Gesicki, Thomas, Higbee, Everett, Reed, Herb Smith, or Trey Burton? Got a lot of tier 2 minus tight ends over there. Who are you feeling the best about right now?
Well, Thomas shouldn't be on this list. I was trying to figure out which Thomas he was talking about. It must be Ian Thomas, and I
Logan Thomas.
wouldn't want to. What's that?
It
Logan?
could be Logan
Oh,
Thomas.
Logan Thomas. Yeah. Either way, I don't think I'm interested in either of those. I really think Hooper is probably the answer. Maybe with Gesicki sprinkled in there, we could see Tua start to develop a relationship. But I think Hooper's the safest of these options. You look at the usage he had prior to the injury. He had 3 games with 5 catches in each game, and his usage was really up. You look at OBJ out of the offense. I really think that Hooper's got a really good shot to continue the usage he was seeing before the appendectomy. And I just imagine that he'll continue to be good after that. So yeah, Hooper's my answer for rest of season with those guys.
I like that take there. A lot of these guys you just hope to see. It's tight ends, right? I agree with that Hooper one.
Reed's a dark horse in here too. The problem is he just never stays healthy. But I do like Jordan Reed to increase his snaps from last week. He did that from week 1 to week 2. Went from 10 snaps in week 1 to 20 snaps in week 2. I think he'll do that again this week, get closer to 20 snaps. And we've already seen in a Shanahan offense, like Reed, the tight end, like feasts in this offense. That's what they do. And especially with all the other injuries, I could see Reed being a dark horse, but he's got to stay healthy, and that's a big if.
Yeah, a lot of upsides to a lot of these different tight end plays, whether it's their physical prowess, whether it's their role on the team.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why a lot of these guys are probably available for you as well. Stephen Drakes asks, DJ Chark or Christian Kirk full point PPR? Personally vibing Chark here, just with the lack of other options with Schultz out. What do you think?
Yeah, with Alexander not likely to give it a go. It definitely gives a big boost to DJ Chark for sure.
GE72 asks full point PPR, need 2 running backs and a flex. Chubb, Sanders, Connor, or Gibson. So who are we not taking out of Chubb, Sanders, Connor, or Gibson? Well, Chubb, if he's not playing, that's an easy one right there.
Yeah, so keep that monitored. They're supposed to announce any second now. They're saying whether or not Chubb is going to be activated. That's what is keep hitting refresh
and if Sanders is playing, right? Yeah. And if Sanders, obviously, if we pretend they're all playing, Gibson's the guy you bench if they're all healthy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, moving, just trying to burn through some of these questions here. Ilias Giftopoulos asks, pick 2, please. Woods, Allen, Robinson, McLaurin, or Locket? Robert Woods, Keenan Allen, Allen Robinson, Terry McLaurin.
I'm going Robert Woods and Terry McLaurin.
What about you, Travi?
I would play Keenan Allen until Keenan Allen's a must start in here.
No, it was Allen Robinson, right? Not Keenan Allen.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I guess I didn't see that.
I get that right.
Yeah, that's correct. I would probably go Robert Woods. I think I might go Locket here. I really do think that it's a Locket game with Jalen Ramsey probably going to be locked up over on DK Metcalf for a lot of this game. I think Locket could actually. It's a really high over/under. It's going to be a shootout, I think, in that game. So I would bet on a Locket game here.
You know, it's wild that in the last, I heard this from on a podcast, JJ Zacharyson podcast this morning. He said that Locket has been a top 50 wide receiver or worse in the last 5 weeks on average. He's been the 50th wide receiver or worse on every game except for the one boom game he had. So there is a lot of concern there, but I do like the fact that Travis said that I do expect Jalen Ramsey, even despite Ramsey saying I'm not shadowing DK, I do expect Ramsey to be on DK the majority of the game.
Yeah, 60% of Tyler Lockett's snaps are taken from the slot, which means he'll be locked up against Troy Hill, the slot corner for the Rams, who's giving up 1.27 yards per route run. We would talk about how good the Rams defense has been good against wide receivers, but you talked about at the top of the show, Austin, if there's that third guy, maybe he sucks. I think this is the situation, not trying to say, Troy Hill sucks. He's in the NFL, but he has not been playing well this season against slot wide receivers. So give me Tyler Lockett in this one. I really do think it's going to be a good game for him.
I think Tyler Lockett is going to have a really nice day too, Travis. I think that's a keen pick there. Tabaloba Iantanji asks to pick 2 wide receivers and a flex. We got Jerry Judy, Chase Edmonds, Antonio Brown, Christian Kirk, Jacoby Myers. This is a fuck ton. Excuse me. This is a lot of names here. We've got Judy, Edmonds, Antonio
lost
Brown, Christian Kirk,
monetization.
Myers, Rieger, Dobbins, Mooney. I'm not playing Antonio Brown.
I actually, man, this has got a ton of guys here. Pick 2 wide receivers and a flex. I mean, I actually think that Antonio Brown is the guy with Christian Kirk here. I think, although Jerry Judy might get some run too. I think Antonio Brown's a flex with touchdown upside each and every week as he plays. So I would continue to roll out Antonio Brown here, and Christian Kirk, 8 targets, over his last 3 games, I believe, and he's just had 6 touchdowns on the season. He's looking good.
I mean, I like that because I would play Edmonds if Drake isn't playing, and so you can give that swap there over Kirk if you go that route, because they play in the same game.
Giovanni Bernard or Emmanuel Sanders? Giovanni Bernard if
Bernard.
Mixon's out.
Mixon did not practice again today. It's looking like he's not going to go.
Right on. Okay, I think. All right, let's jump into some of these news and nuggets. Big Travie. We're talking about the Baltimore Ravens right now. We just mentioned J.K. Dobbins, who might have a continued expanded role if Mark Ingram continues to miss time, but it's looking like he's pretty questionable for Week 10, trending upwards. He's been out more weeks than they said he was going to be when the injury initially happened. He's expected to play, practiced in full for the first time today. How are you feeling right now about the Baltimore Ravens backfield with or without Mark Ingram?
It's kind of like Johnny was saying with Kenyon Drake. You kind of hope that Mark Ingram just takes another week off, because I think that's the only path you have to starting those guys. And I think both Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins in this game, it's a 41.5 point over under, right? And you've got Baltimore favored by more than a touchdown. The game script should be good here for Baltimore. You look at what they've been able to do. Dobbins getting about 56% of the snap share and looking pretty explosive, looking dynamic. So I would actually kind of roll with Dobbins and Edwards. Dobbins more of the RB2 flex range, and then Edwards more of an RB3 flex range for me. But if Ingram goes, I would fade everyone, honestly. I just don't know how you can trust that you're going to get the same usage with Ingram back in the lineup.
Yeah, for sure. Staying with the Ravens, Travi, I wanted to ask you about their quarterback, Mr. Lamar Jackson. We've heard the stories of him mentioning defense calling out the plays. Not ideal when deception and catching him off guard is a huge advantage in football. How are you feeling right now? Do you think that have they been exposed, or is it just a little fire under the pants to continue to innovate, continue to push it, level it up, or did they reach their max? What do you think right now, Travi? And how do you see the rest of the season playing out for fantasy managers rostering Lamar Jackson?
I'm a little torn here. I think that there are some matchups for Lamar Jackson in this offense to take advantage of. You look at weeks 13 through 17. Dallas, Jacksonville, New York Giants, Cincinnati, all in those weeks. So those are great matchups to target. But then on the other hand, you have Lamar, who hasn't thrown over 275 yards only once, and that was in week 1. Like, he's just not doing it like he was doing it last year. And even the rushing is down. He's had 65 or fewer yards the rushing has been down earlier in the year. But the last 3 weeks, he's picked that up. So I think his floor is obviously still there. He's at the very end of QB1 territory. You're likely not going to find somebody on the waiver that you trust a whole lot more than Lamar and gives you that much more upside because of his running ability. So for me, I think you got to hold tight. And in this game, obviously, we've talked about New England. They're not a great defense this year. They do limit you through the air, but on the ground, they've been had over the last few weeks. And I actually could see a game where they use Lamar Jackson a lot more on the ground, and that's the way they get it done. So I'm okay with Lamar this week. I don't like hearing what he said on Rich Eisen about defenses, calling him out. That's definitely not something you want. Like, that's the opposite of what you want. But I think there's a situation here where Lamar, just on his legs alone and ability alone, will get it done for you in fantasy.
We've got to remember right now that the Ravens have lost just 2 games to the Chiefs, last year's World Super Bowl champs, and the Steelers, the only undefeated team in the NFL. They've beat
Right.
every single other team they've played, and they put up 20 or more points in every single game they've played as well. Lamar Jackson just hasn't had to do it, right? Like they're winning in a lot of different weird ways, and I'd be interested to see what happens if they have to rely on Lamar Jackson to actually pull one of these games out. We saw Patrick Mahomes be a little bit inconsistent as the Chiefs were winning in multiple fashions, and then when they needed him, he stepped up and he came in and made it happen. I'm curious to see if Lamar Jackson is going to rise up. Let's keep in mind, this is a 23-year-old MVP who people didn't even think was going to be able to play quarterback anyways. The man has obviously shown that he can grow, he can improve, he takes this work seriously. I'm not going to go ahead and doubt a 22-year-old MVP who just brought his team to the top of the division last year. So
Put some
I think
respect on his name.
I think he'll have a nice second half of the season. Like Travis said, he has a really nice schedule ahead. And then if you looked at the schedule he's already played, it was actually one of the most difficult. It was top 4 most difficult schedule that he's had faced for the first half of the season. Moving forward, it's like I don't know, like top 6. I want to say. Don't quote me on that, but I do know it's way easier. So I do think that there is like a reality where, they do maybe start throwing a little bit more, and you could see some positive regression here. A lot of people are keeping their fingers crossed that happens.
Here we go. Moving on to the Buffalo Bills, where wide receiver John Brown returned to practice, getting in a full session yesterday. He's finally back to full health, it's looking like. He had a great week 9, and he's got a top shelf matchup here against the Cardinals. Vegas got the over-under at 56.5 points. Johnny, how are you feeling about John Brown and the Buffalo Bills offense?
I'm playing him. If if he ends up going and playing and as he should, I think this is a really good matchup for him. I think that it's somewhat of a revenge game, you can say. We love Smokey Brown here, though. But yeah, I like him a lot. I think that he could definitely hit a big play for sure. And then we talked about Buddha possibly being out. And if Buddha's out, I definitely would see a John Brown long bomb for sure.
Yeah, not just Buddha. I mean, even if it's because mostly Drake Kirkpatrick's going to be on John Brown, and he's given up 1.7 yards per route run to opposing wide receivers. I love this game, especially after coming back healthy last week. Got 11 targets, 8 catches, 99 yards against Seattle last week. John Brown should be in your lineup.
Yeah, it's a really nice matchup here. Jumping over to Whisper Nation, sharing some lineup questions for us I wanted to get to here. Prody JML asks, Chase Edmonds or Fournette, half-point PPR. Johnny, I want to know your take here. Chase Edmonds or Fournette, half-point PPR if you had to set your lineup right now.
I had to say, based on the information I have right now, I don't think that Drake ends up playing. So I would go Edmonds. But again, if Drake is playing, I think that relegates more to like an RB3 flex for Edmonds. So I would go Fournette in that case.
Hey, you said earlier you weren't leaning one way or the other. Now you're leaning. You got it, huh?
Well, no. I'm saying that I am not leaning one way. Yeah, I guess. I don't think he ends up playing. I just don't think he
That's
does.
your hunch.
That's my hunch.
Okay.
I don't, and that's not based off of anything. It's not based off any actual evidence. I just don't think he ends up playing based on what we saw. That it just looked really bad, and I think it
would be short of every other ankle injury we've seen so far this year, which has taken about 3 weeks. This would be 2. I just don't. I agree with you, Johnny. I don't know. It's wild to me that he's even a game time decision at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe a little smoke and mirrors. We've seen a lot of that coming from ankle injuries this year. A lot of I'm not going to miss any time. In the month later, he's still questionable.
Yeah, exactly.
Whether it's Chris Carson, Mark Ingram, there's been a ton of players that it's popped up with. Drake is becoming one of them. Same user, Prody JML. Travis asked to pick 2: Breda, Balaj, John Brown, or Brandon Ayuk. Half point.
We're going to go Brandon Ayuk and John Brown here. I'm going to fade the 2 running backs, mostly because I'm not trusting in Breda's usage, even if he is healthy with what's going on in Miami. We've seen Jordan Howard taking goal line work. And really, Brandon Ayuk, with Deebo Samuel likely out, is going to be really the only weapon for Nick Mullins here. And he's just been so special and dynamic with the ball in his hand. We know Shanahan's going to scheme him into the offense. We already made the case for John Brown just a little bit ago.
Brandon Ayuk is such a fun player to watch.
Oh yeah,
Of
man.
all these incredible rookie wide receivers, and there are more than I can remember ever. He is such a fun one. My
Yeah.
goodness, explosive, athletic, all kinds of good stuff. Gus Ramos asks about playing Locket or Chris Carson. Oh,
Well,
obviously, let's pretend Chris Carson's in. I still like Travis' breakdown from Tyler Lockett on this one. You can't go wrong on this, regardless of Carson's health.
Yeah, I think I'd be worried about Carson being a little limited here if they do play him. Now, that's never been Pete Carroll's style with Carson. Like, if Carson goes, he usually goes. But I could see a re-injury situation or something like that. There's just, for me, the risk with Lockett is another dud. The explosion, though, the ceiling for Lockett is through the roof. It's a week winner. So I'd be playing for that ceiling this week. I think in that matchup, I think it gets done.
well, and I think this is kind of where you talk about a little bit about strategy, right? It depends on
Right.
what you need. If you need that kind of, game where you're like, oh, I'm going up against, one of the top teams in the league, I need that upside, then play Lockett. But if you're, going up against, a guy that or girl who you should beat, if you just play a solid guy, solid team, then I would go with Chris Carson, because I do think that Chris Carson has just a solid day if he plays, but I don't think he ends up playing. So I think it'll be an easy decision with Lockett.
I know you brought up that really great point from the Zach Reason podcast, Johnny, about Lockett not being in the top 50 the last couple of weeks. But from Travis' breakdown of the defensive matchup the Rams are going to present, the 96% snap percentage he has every single week, I think Lockett's – and the over-under for this game, I think Lockett's floor is higher than it's been in a long time.
I'll also say, like, I know that the Rams have benefited for not playing some very talented backs. Like, they just got off of David Montgomery, and then I think the Myles Gaskin-less Miami Dolphins. But they're going to have a situation here where they're only giving up under 18 points per game to running backs. So they're actually in the bottom 10 against the running back position this year. So all things for me are kind of pointing towards Lockett. But I get Johnny's point too. Like, sometimes it's hard to give up on what you know is volume for a starting running back.
Yeah.
So it is kind of a play it by what you need in your matchup. You're going against a juggernaut who puts up 120 a week, and you're a low scoring team. Maybe you put Lockett in there and you're going for the fences. But if you just need to kind of be safe here, play it smart, then I could see a Carson. I could see a Carson play here.
Though, make sure you are tuned into the pre-game kickoff show 90 minutes before the morning games on Sunday. We'll have more information. Our takes will evolve when that new information comes in. If Chris Carson is ready to go, our take on Carson versus Lockett could drastically change. So make sure you tune in to YouTube's live stream an hour and a half before the Sunday morning kickoff games. A couple more questions here before we jump back into the news and nuggets here. Cass Pajamas, what's up, man? Asks about Cam Newton or Joe Burrow this week. Newton's going up against Baltimore. Cincinnati is playing Pittsburgh.
Yep.
Ooh, two tough defensive matchups there for.
Yeah, this is one where I hope there's somebody else available on waivers. But if Jared Goff is not there, who's a nice streamer,
Such a funny laugh. That was great. That was like
I would not want to start either of these guys.
No.
I would actually lean on Joe Burrow though, because look, we know the bottom line is the Pittsburgh Steelers are the best at pressuring the quarterback. The Cincinnati Bengals are the worst at keeping the quarterback safe. We know that's an issue. We know there will probably be some turnovers and some issues for Burrow, but God willing, he makes it through the entire game. And they will throw a lot because that's what they do in every game that they're in. So I think the volume is there for Burrow to get you garbage time, make up some points, and get you between 18 and 20 points. Where Cam's floor against a Baltimore defense that's been really good is basically non-existent. Like it's a zero floor, and he's gotten negative this year. So for me, I would roll with Burrow if I had to choose one of these.
Last question here before we jump into some of the nuggets. Blue Crew asks about dropping Gordon. I'm assuming Melvin Gordon for Jacoby Myers. Other running backs are Alvin Kamara, Ezekiel Elliott, and J.D. McKissick.
I would not do this. Yeah, I would hang on to Melvin
Gordon.
Yeah.
You should be able to trade Melvin Gordon for a receiver better anyways.
Yeah.
If you want to. That would be my thinking first.
If you marry yourself to Jacoby Myers, once again, to talk about Cam Newton, you're marrying yourself to Cam Newton getting some air, or like throwing it through the air down the stretch, and we have just not been very confident in that this year.
Harry is going to be back a little soon, whatever that could cause.
Edelman, I don't think is out for the year either, so there's that situation as well.
Myers got a short shelf life if he's even good at all. But yeah, keep an eye on that one as well, because it could be an all right spot start. Depending on what you need, you might need that more than anything else versus a long-term play. Speaking of long-term plays, if you were invested in Christian McCaffrey, you've had a bad season. He is going to be out again, dealing with a shoulder issue this time. We'll see how long this lingers, but either way, Mike Davis has been getting it done for the most part at a decent RB2 level the entire season. Johnny, how are you feeling right now about Mike Davis coming in for the Panthers and this running back dynamic rest of season?
Yeah, I mean, you could continue to plug him in. Now he has slowed down a little bit, as opposed to when he was in the beginning of the season. He was a legit fill-in, 1-for-1 for CMC, but he's kind of tapered off a little bit, and I expect that this week. But you're still plugging him in. I think he's a great. I mean, once again, we talk about RB1 usage for players. Not a lot of guys can get that, and Mike Davis can get that. And if you're getting RB1 usage, you have potential to finish as an RB1 for the week, and that's what we want. So plug and play for Mike Davis.
Yeah, everybody looks at this matchup, and rightfully so, saying that Tampa Bay's a tough matchup, and they are. They've given up the second fewest rushing yards in 2020, but they're allowing the second most receptions per game. The average is 6.5 receptions to running backs against them, and Mike Davis himself in his games this year has 5 catches per game on average, and that includes the 2 games with CMC. So they're going to use him in the passing game. So especially if this is PPR, you're rocking him in there. But I want to give a little bit of confidence, even in standard league, that he's going to get it done based on through the air usage.
We're moving over to talk about the Bears right now, where Allen Robinson was limited on Thursday's practice with a knee issue. It's the first injury report of the week we saw yesterday, so it's a new issue that he's looking like. He is still looking like he's playing, but it's something to keep an eye on. Not as confident about David Montgomery, however, who was sidelined at today's practice, dealing with a concussion. He's got 24 hours to clear the protocol, but he's got multiple did not practices during the week. Factoring in the last point here about head coach Matt Nagy is going to cede play calling duties to offensive coordinator Bill Lazor in week 10 against the Vikings. So Travi, how are you feeling right now about a banged up Bears backfield? Some question marks about Allen Robinson, but a potential entire dynamic shift in play calling duties going away from Matt Nagy.
Bill Lazor just reminds me of like dodgeball.
Blazer and Blazer.
Bill Lazor, if you guys remember, is from the Cincinnati Bengals program most recently, where he was over there, offensive mind over there. So you can think back to a little bit of Joe Mixon usage. You can think back to like one wide receiver funneling the ball, and that's basically what the Bears have been already. So I think this is not going to be too much different from what they've been doing, pounding the rock with Montgomery, chucking it up to Allen Robinson. Once in a while, you're going to get some Jimmy Graham love in there. That's basically what it is. Those are the guys you'd be willing to start. If Montgomery doesn't go, which it's not looking good, I don't want any part of Ryan Nall, Lamar Miller, Cordarrelle Patterson mix nastiness that this is going to be. I don't want any part of it. Like it's a complete fade if Montgomery doesn't go. And I'll be honest with you, as I have Montgomery in several leagues. I don't want any part of that either, because he's just not really good, but you'll take the usage if he's in, because he's getting usage, and this Minnesota defense hasn't been very great. But guys, I think this is the second lowest, if not the lowest over-under on the week. It's going to be very tight, low scoring in Chicago, very sloppy game, two defensive-minded teams going at each other. I will take Allen Robinson all day as an auto start. I mean, this guy basically averages 9 targets, and I'll take even Jimmy Graham in this matchup too. But I don't want any part of the running back situation.
Yeah, speaking of the tough running back situation and the Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Mixon in Cincinnati, he's doubtful week 10 against the Steelers. The plan is for Mixon to be consideration to play next week. If he's out, Giovanni Bernard's filling in. Do you want anything to do with Giovanni Bernard going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers rush defense?
I mean, once again,
yeah, go for it, Jenny. Sorry.
Well, it's just like you get the usage, right? And Gio has been proven to actually be able to fill in quite nicely. And then you also do look at Pittsburgh. They actually have been a little bit susceptible to the run. It's not great, the greatest matchup, no, but I just wanted to share this because Whisper Nation, if you need help, slide into our DMs, ask us. Today, just this morning, I had someone asking about a trade. It was like DeAndre Hopkins and Adrian Peterson for Allen Robinson and Mike Davis, right? And he's like, I'm looking at the playoffs. What should I do? I'm like, oh, I would actually do this deal. And he's like, well, I don't have an RB to get me through this week because his other RB was on a bye. And so he showed me a screenshot of the waivers, and Gio was on the waivers. I was like, dude, make this deal, then go swoop up Gio, get you right through the bye week, and you're good to go. And so he did, and I felt excited about it. And I'm like, now he's got D-Hop, upgraded the position, get a little bit more stability there on a good playoff schedule, and you get your bye week filling in Gio. It's great. Win, win, win.
There we go. I love that story there. So make sure you subscribe, not just on YouTube, but Instagram. Catch us fading all this knowledge, sharing all this knowledge in multiple formats. And you might have yourself, that could legitimately just set you up to win a championship. Right there, scanning the waiver, making some deals, using all the tools fantasy football gives us to crush your opponents. Blue Drew, Quinn Hartman asks Mike Davis, or J.D. McKissick, Wayne Gallman, or Gio at the flex, half point. Mike Davis, J.D. McKissick, Gallman, or Gio at the flex.
For the half point PPR, I would go with Mike Davis. I know Gio and Mike Davis have tough matchups. I think actually Gio's got a tougher matchup. You look at the receiving yards that Pittsburgh gives up, that's really where they're good. They don't give up a lot of receiving yards to the running back, whereas we talked about the receptions given up to running backs for Tampa, and I think that's where Davis can get it going. And then McKissick and Gallman, look, I have some nice things to say about Gallman, but not in this particular situation. Like, I would not be picking Gallman a bunk above those two.
And there's a category here, right? McKissick is behind Antonio Gibson, who also just returned to practice. We'll touch on it in a second. Gallman is going to be that lead back for them, but it's still such
a... for sure I'd put Gallman ahead of McKissick, but he's behind the other two we talked about in that, so.
Hands down. ISO Only says, what's going on? What's good? ISO Only. He has a question way down the line, so we'll get to that in a second here. Rob Shorter, keep up the good work. Thank you, Rob. In Dynasty, Lindsey or Montgomery? Montgomery's probably out, so Lindsey. ISO Only.
Well,
I think he's saying Dynasty, like
long term.
Career, long term.
I think I would still probably want to have Montgomery over Lindsey just because we
next year.
Huh?
Yeah, you're gonna.
Well, they draft back in the first round next year.
I mean, maybe, but Philip Lindsey's like an unrestricted free agent after this year. Like,
he's good at running backs, but he's actually good at football. Like,
yeah, I mean, look,
all right,
I think
you
Lindsey,
can have Philip Lindsey. I would take David Montgomery.
I think Lindsey
all day.
Lindsey can. There is a case here. Lindsey is a guy who overperforms but can't stay healthy based on his size, probably. And Dave Montgomery's been dinged up a little bit in his career, but just has not been productive at all. So I think, obviously Austin's being a little facetious. You're going to want to draft somebody for sure. But I like, in my mind, I think I'm leaning Montgomery because I know his situation a little bit better. They haven't brought anybody in. And if Lindsey goes, he may just end up being a complimentary piece wherever he goes. He probably will be. And if he's a complimentary piece in like a Jacksonville, you don't really want that. You don't end up. You just got to figure out where he ends up going. Undrafted free agent, so like he's probably just going to try and get his next contract. Sorry, Austin, didn't mean to cut you off there.
Jumping in there too. No, I think that's a good summary on it, right? Like, Montgomery should be the guy until he's not the lead back on a team,
right?
Which he hasn't given a reason to be the lead back on a team, but he still is. So.
Right. Especially my team.
We'll see. We've got Cat's Pajamas asking about pick 3 PPR: Mike Davis, Hollywood Brown, Jalen Reagor, Brandon Ayuk, or Tim Patrick.
Sorry, take this one.
I would be going Reagor, Ayuk, and Mike Davis. I do like Tim Patrick as like a sneaky play, but I like the matchup a lot for Reagor this week, and I think that they'll exploit that because Bradbury's supposed to be on Fulgham, and so that would leave the secondary corner for the Giants on Reagor, and I think that they'll exploit that for sure. I definitely see a long bomb hookup happening this week.
ISO only is following up here asking about if Drake is going to be similar to Zeke rest of season. I assume if Drake is back and he's healthy.
The difference is, like, I trust the Arizona offense a whole lot more than I'm trusting the Dallas offense right now. They have a quarterback I can actually count on to get him down into the red zone.
What's so funny is... Oh, sorry, Travis.
Go for it.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm just saying, and the only thing about Drake is I want to know how this split is going to be. Let's say Drake comes back fully healthy. He's over the ankle, which, an ankle injury, there's no guarantee that you're going to come back and be that effective. But let's say he comes back and he is most effective. What's the usage like now that Chase Edmonds has kind of been let out of the bottle a little bit? Does it go more to a 60-40, 70-30 split? Because before it was like an 80-20, 90-10 in rushing alone, and where Edmonds got all the passing game work. I'm just curious to see how that usage is going to be down the stretch. That's the only thing I think you could save the Zeke argument here. That's a really tough one. Like, rest of season, do you want? I think you want Zeke just because he's healthy now and doesn't have the ankle thing going on, but it's close.
I want to say one point because I read it in my notes from years past. Of every time we get late in the season, I start telling myself this narrative about teams that are out of it aren't going to be playing their studs. These stars on teams that aren't in the playoff hunt are going to bench their guys because why would you play them and put the tear on their treads as they come to the end of the year, like Ezekiel Elliott playing for a dumpster fire Cowboys team this year. But at the end of the season, I always mark the note of saying studs want to keep playing. If they're healthy, they are actually going to play football. Like, even if the Cowboys are out and Zeke is healthy, unless there's something weird, he's going to play. And you're going to say they're going to bench him because the season's over. They don't. And I bet we're going to ask the same questions again, and I bet we're going to see studs playing in meaningless games at the end of the year because they're professional football players and they want to get out there and do what they do. So with that, Joe, I'm vibing everything you're saying. But if Zeke is playing, even if the team is garbage, nobody's going to take his job. Yeah. They're not. But
the thing is two-parter is that, one, we don't know if Drake, we don't know Drake's actual health. So that's the big part of it, right? If you're saying, Drake was fully healthy versus Zeke, right? Fully healthy or whatever Zeke is at right now. The reality is, this is the funny part about fantasy football is that we get so enamored with one thing, like the touchdowns or before Drake went down, when Drake went down that week, he was top 5 in rushing in the NFL. He had top 5 in rushing yards. But if you ask people, they said, oh, he's the biggest bust in the entire first round. Yet he was top 5 in rushing yards. People just, they don't, it's just funny how finicky people get. And, we expect big flash games and all these things. And it's it doesn't always work out that way.
And he had stayed top 5 in rushing. I think the issue, like we said, is the passing game work that he wasn't getting and the points he wasn't scoring because Kyler Murray was taking all the rushing touchdowns.
Right.
So enamored or not, we weren't getting the points we wanted for that rushing. You're just getting the baseline points for that. So I think that's where it comes from, and especially when you can see the ceiling. But I like what Austin said here because I do think you could talk yourself into Drake with the health and all that. But I honestly think we know Zeke is healthy. We know he's going to be, and especially no matter what happens with the quarterback situation, they're going to want to make him the focal point of the offense going forward.
Mike McCarthy doesn't want to have such a down arrow pointing his first year in Dallas. These guys want to win. Everybody on the field wants to win. Every coach playing wants to win. Yeah, there is some force that says you want to lose to have advantage in the draft, and maybe that's coming from the owner. Maybe it's coming from the GM. But there are opposite forces in every locker room and every team, and some of those forces really want to win. And if they're slotted in a position to be on the field and make that happen, you can bet they're going to be giving it their all.
Be interested to see how the salary cap, the projected salary cap for next year, which is going to be a lot lower than this year's because of COVID, and then also COVID itself factors into that narrative that you're talking about there, Austin. Will teams actually rest starters faster than they have in years past? Excuse me.
Oh, we need to rest you, dude. It looks like you got a little COVID cough there.
Hold on. Maybe shut me down for the year.
Yeah, dude.
Jack Lads accepted a trade with Kareem Hunt for Chris Carson. Who wins? Would you rather have Chris Carson or Kareem Hunt rest of season?
So I was looking at this while we were kind of talking about Drake versus Zeke. The only thing is Carson's health is already there, right? I mean, Hunt's been a little dinged up with the ribs, but Carson's health scares me a little bit. He's always been a violent runner that gets dinged up. And his schedule, only two of his games remaining are 13 and 14 now. That's in the playoff stretch, and then actual playoff game are good, really good matchups. And then you look at Kareem Hunt, and 4 out of his final games are great matchups. So I think I would actually lean Hunt here, just based on health and matchups.
Any disagreement on that one? Kind of interesting one there.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah, me too, 100% there. Darius Rice asks to start 2 between Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin, DJ Shark, Deontay Johnson. They're funny. These are funny, very good football players in weird positions. Antonio Brown, Godwin, DJ Shark, Deontay Johnson.
I think I would go Chark and Godwin.
I would think I'm going to go Deontay Johnson if he's healthy. I think I would go Shark. Oh man, I don't. That's tough, man. Yeah, I probably would go Godwin and Shark. You're right. I think that's where I'd go to. The thing that worries me about Godwin is the finger. They've got that thing taped up. I don't know if you guys saw it on Sunday night. Like they got it taped to another finger, and he looks like he's like out of Star Trek catching the ball like that. I mean, you need that index finger to catch a ball. I mean, he caught some, but yeah. Kind of worries me.
So, Darius Rice, Travis, you're talking about Gallman. He wants to know: is he looks to start with Freeman out? Is he stream worthy? Otherwise, Gibson and Leonard Fournette currently starting for him.
Oh man, this is tough. I like Fournette's matchup, but obviously Ronald Jones always looms there to take some of the rushing ability away. Gallman, I do like a lot. Gibson in a fantastic matchup, but has been ceding third down work to McKissick. Gallman averaging 14 touches in his last 3 games, scored in 3 straight. But this is a tough Eagles front, and I think I would actually fade Gallman for the other 2 here. I think that's the right call. You want to try and get Gallman in your lineup as a streamable if you're really desperate, but this situation, I actually think you have the right guys ahead of him.
You said you want to try to get Gallman in your lineup if you're desperate.
Yeah, like what we talk about.
I just love that phrase is just really funny in itself. Like you should really try to get this guy in your lineup if you're desperate.
I mean, that's about.
I'm not disagreeing with it. I think that what you're saying is great. It's just the breakdown of that phrase is funny. That's all.
Tell that I still have 1 foot in on Wayne Gallman when I got to the end of that, but I understand what's by the book here is Leonard Fournette. Like they're in positive game script, they're favorites. It should be a great matchup against Carolina, and then Gibson I think is. I mean, I've been calling for this every week this year, but I think this is the Gibson breakout game.
I do like Gibson this week.
Yeah, glad to see him coming back. Yas Whedon, what's going on, man? How about them Titans, right? Should be worried about Henry hitting that patented second half surge while down both starting tackles. Aiden Tobin also brings this in. Should he go out and trade for Henry in every league possible after 2 decent games or people think bad games?
It's funny. Shout out to FF Prophet on Instagram. He made this great rant video about.
Austin, have you seen this?
You can't buy low on the Derrick Henry GMs because they're not idiots. They have Derrick Henry. They understand that Derrick Henry's good. Like it's not like his down games have been so terrible. The dude is still like. Did you see that stiff arm on like the 300-pound defensive lineman last night? Like put him into the earth, dude. Just like to the center of the fucking of the planet. I guess we already did this twice.
Wow.
Sorry. We gotta. Either way, love Derrick Henry. I think if you can get him for cheap, which I doubt you can, you get him. Yeah. Like that's the point. Like,
awesome.
He's the best.
It was so funny, and the shout out to FF Prophet. It was so funny because he goes, what are you going to say to him? Oh, he's coming off 2 bad weeks. He just had 42 points 3 weeks ago. You think they forgot? And I was like, I sent it to Travis and I was crying. I was like, well done. This is so true. So true.
Derrick Henry and what separates him from every other running back dynamic is the man truly has special qualities. Like I've ragged on him in years past about them being ineffectual, and my commentary was ineffectual because they are actually beneficial components, being his size and his strength paired with his sneaky speed. Like when that man gets up to speed, he's faster than everybody, but he's enormous and he's very strong and like stronger than every other running back. So even if he's having down weeks, it's like if
How
you're playing a
strong?
Mortal Kombat or like a fighting game and you got a character with like a special ability and you might be getting your butt whipped, then you get your power up and you hit him with that special ability and it just completely rocks your opponent. Derrick Henry can throw 300-pound linemen into the ground with one arm. Most running backs just can't do that. So you get him who busts that special move out. It creates a touchdown run, something that gives him a true leg up. And when you pair a couple of those together, he gets you 40 points.
Well, and then you look weeks 14, 15, and 16 playoff schedule at Jacksonville, Detroit, at Green Bay. That is the juiciest matchup set that you can literally, like, Derrick Henry will win people championships.
Yeah, that was the other
year.
thing that FF Prophet said. Like, what do you think these Derrick Henry GMs haven't clicked the little blurb icon and realized that all 3 matchups in the playoffs are green? Yeah, they're not idiots, man. You're not going to be able to do it. Yeah, I thought that was a great video. Look, Derrick Henry ballooned with the 40-point week, but he's had other great weeks consistently. He's coming off a 100-yard game in a game that they were stymied a lot on offense. The dude averages 16.8 fantasy points per game. That's number 5. He's the number 2 back in a lot of formats. Yeah, there's no way you'd be getting rid of Derrick Henry. And if somebody in your league is, I won't say stupid, but not smart enough to get rid of him, yeah, I would do that.
Moving forward here with some of the news and nuggets, we'll get to your remaining questions. Drop them in the chat, Whisper Nation. Thanks again for joining us this Friday afternoon. If you haven't hit that little thumbs up icon, like and subscribe, please go ahead and do that. We greatly appreciate this. I've got players in the news and nuggets notes here that I'm going to be moving over as we brought them up throughout the chat and gone over their situation, like an Austin Hooper here in Cleveland, who should be coming back from appendicitis. Keep an eye on him, feeling good about that, as well as Nick Chubb's knee. His status for week 10 is going to be determined once he meets with the team doctor. Join our live pre-kickoff show on Sunday, hour and a half before kickoff, to catch more in-depth news and notes coming at you when we have that updated information. But Travi here, Jerry Judy, his shoulders make him questionable for week 10 against the Raiders. Coach Vic Fangio said this afternoon he expects the rookie to play. He had 14 targets last week, 7 catches. I know Johnny was calling that one. He was spot on with Jerry Judy last week. Travi, is he going to be another hot start this week, or are you fading on Jerry Judy and the Denver Broncos against the Raiders?
I just have to say, I love when the coaches are like, I expect him to play.
Yeah.
You're like you're just like, okay, like, is he gonna play? Like, did you ask him? Or are you just telling us? You're just telling us that you expect him to play. Like, you're talking smack on him. We talked about that with who was it with the COVID? Reichwell Armstead from Jacksonville has COVID all year. He's expected to come back and be just like stronger than ever next year. Like, how do you know that? And what if he's not stronger? Poor guy. Like, what if he comes in just a little less strong than this year? Anyways, not to get off the rail here. Jerry Judy, I think, is a fine play this week. The Raiders are a terrible secondary, or not a terrible secondary, but they've let up quite a bit of points over the last few weeks. He's coming off of 14 targets last week, 10 targets the week before, 24 targets in 2 games. As Drew Lock starts to heat up, it looks like Jerry Judy and his volume is starting to heat up too. You look at Noah Fant nursing a little bit of an injury, so Jerry Judy getting a lot of the possession receptions too. I think Jerry Judy is a fine play.
Fant does look like he's going to play. He practiced fully.
Fant, but I think it's what you talked about a little bit when we did the matchup show this week, Austin, where, he's going to be there. He's going to play through it. He's tough, but how limited is that ankle injury going to make him in the game? We'll see. But I still even with Noah Fant in the lineup, I like Jerry Judy.
Yeah, it might, even though his shine is going to be reduced with an ankle injury, his opportunity might go up just from how many weapons they have down right now. Keep an eye on Tim Patrick too. If something weird does happen to Tim Patrick or to Jerry Judy. But Johnny here, sticking with the tight ends, TJ Hawkinson, Lions tight ends, questionable for week 10, dealing with a toe issue, was added to the Thursday injury report. But he was able to practice on Friday. That's a pretty good sign. With Kenny Golladay sidelined, how are you feeling about TJ Hawkinson this week, as well as Marvin Jones, as Kenny Golladay is going to be out against Washington?
I'm playing him. I think he's gonna ultimately give it a go.
Who are you playing?
Hawkinson, TJ Hawkinson. Yeah, see that, you gotta get that little in your back of your
The
throat
little
there.
phlegm in the back of your throat.
Yeah,
there?
yeah. I'm definitely playing him. Look, he's the number 2 tight end on the season. I'm not saying, just because he's the number 2 tight end on the season, you should play him. That's not where my basis comes in. I'm just saying that in a landscape of tight ends that is beyond desert dry, you have a guy who all of the other weapons around him are just disappearing, kind of like the water in the desert, and he's just left there by himself, and all the targets are going to go to him. I expect him to play. I would be playing him with confidence if he gives it a go, and I expect him. This is actually, look, Washington on paper doesn't look like the greatest matchup, but if you look at where this Washington team is actually most susceptible, it is at that tight end position. So that's where I would play him.
Yeah, I mean, we talk all the time, like Travis Kelce or the next guy is your, favorite tight end. It's been Hawkinson. Like Travis Kelce and Hawkinson up until last night with Jonnu Smith playing a game, he was the tight end 2. He's the tight end 3 right now. He's got touchdowns in 4 games this year. I'm sorry, 5 games this year. So you love Hawkinson. I think he's got 2 touchdown upside each and every week.
Yeah, the Jonnu touchdown. What a joke.
Love that one. Darius Rice asks in the chat here, better quarterback start. This is the Hannon question. Josh Allen or Justin Herbert this week?
I'm going Josh Allen against the Cardinals. I expect it to be a shootout. Also, I do want to make note that the Herbert game is supposed to be rainy. That is what the forecast is showing. So, slippery ball. Herbert is actually known for, or not known, but
I thought you were nicknaming him that.
Yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, no.
Slippery ball Herbert.
I know.
That's his name.
Like I was about to, right? Like, but Herbert, he does have a propensity to throw a pick or 2 in games. I think he's done it in all but 2 games this year. So I would go with Josh Allen.
Yeah, nobody wants slippery ball Herbert in their lineup anyways.
Yeah,
No, I think the for me it's the over-under, right, Austin? Like if you look at the Chargers-Miami game's a 47.5 point over-under, and then you look at that Arizona-Buffalo game's a 56 point over-under. A lot more points there on the board that could be Josh Allen, so I'd be taking that shot with it.
Quick tight end question here. Logan Thomas or Gesicki this week? Darius Rice asks.
Oh, man.
This one's tough. Gesicki.
I would go with Gesicki. I think Gesicki, at least for me, has more upside. I think in my mind, played more snaps I think than Logan Thomas did last week, or I'm sorry, got more targets than Logan Thomas did last week. So
you also
Thomas
look. Kaiser.
They're very similar though, right? Like they're both guys that should be good. The peripheral numbers are there.
Gesicki 4, and with Preston Williams being out, that could be a benefit.
Something there.
It could be. And then you look here. Kaiser White is supposed. Pro Football Focus is saying that's who's supposed to be lined up against Mike Gesicki. That is the best. It is the second best matchup according to Pro Football Focus. He gives up 0.37 fantasy points per route ran. According to Pro Football Focus. So I would go Gesicki. Just it sucks. It sounds nasty, I know, but
Yeah, I think it's all right this week. It hasn't really happened, but it's a good chance of it happening this week. Con Wayand asks, should I start Antonio Gibson so we're locking Antonio Gibson, J.D. McKissick or Eyuk or Mike Williams?
Ooh. I might go Eyuk just based on volume, but I think I would go Mike Williams ahead of McKissick here. So it's really between Mike Williams and Eyuk, and it is boom bust situation with Mike Williams, usually is. We talked about the rainy conditions there, that could affect it. Yeah, I think I would take Eyuk here. No Deebo Samuel, no George Kittle. Give me Eyuk as the focal point of this Niners offense.
I'd agree with McKissick being the third one.
Yeah.
There, after the Antonio Gibson news. Teddy Bridgewater or Cam? I don't like Cam against the Baltimore Ravens this week.
Don't really love Teddy Bridgewater against Tampa Bay.
I think I would go.
Man, that's tough. I would hope.
I would probably go. I'd maybe go. No, I
Well,
don't know.
let me take a look here because
I think
Bridgewater.
Cam this week, personally. I think the Ravens want to make a statement in this game. They know that Cam likes to run that ball across the line of scrimmage. And this top-rated Baltimore defense, I think, is going to not just play the game to win, but make a point. That's just my gut take on this one. I think
Yeah,
Cam Newton's going to.
I
He's
would
going to
agree
have.
with your gut here, Austin, only because, and look, prior to this game against the Chiefs, Bridgewater had 4 straight games of less than 20 points, so not really great. And in this Tampa game before in the Week 2 matchup, he had less than 10 points, so not really great for Bridgewater here. But if there's a chance that one of these guys is going to hang 300 and a couple touchdowns on the opposing defense, I'm going to give it to Teddy, and Tampa Bay just kind of got exposed a little bit by New Orleans. So maybe Teddy rides the wave a little bit here and catches Tampa with their pants down. I would look at other matchups that are on your waiver. Maybe Derek Carr's available. Maybe Drew Lock's even available. Maybe Jared Goff's available. I would look to those guys ahead of these two. But if you have to go with these two, I think Teddy's the right matchup.
Samuel Rojas asks about Justin Jefferson over Dalvin Cook.
What? No, absolutely not. Never. No.
Don't try to get cute and pretend when the hot streak's going to end. Let him tell you when it's going to end. You don't tell him when it's going to end.
Look, I understand Chicago's a tough defense and all that, but let's be real here. Dalvin Cook has been a world beater the last 2 weeks. 400 yards, I believe, over the last 2 weeks. One of the best players in the league right now. Yeah, Dalvin Cook.
Yeah. Just Incredible asks about Calvin Ridley rest of season.
I think he's going to be okay. They were talking about this being a mild list, Frank. He would just need a few weeks to kind of get rid of it, and I think that's going to be fine. And he's a touchdown machine. I was just going to try and look up their rest of season.
They have a pretty deep, I believe. Hold on.
I think Ridley's fine. I think that defense is going to continue to struggle, and Ridley is still going to be a big part of this offense.
Oh, Sam came in and clarified here, not to play over. I'm just not insane. Just wondering if he'll have a week. Dalvin Cook can have a week. Justin Jefferson they've got cool playmakers over there in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Well, when you look at the Bears defense, you're talking about a defense that just gave up their second passing defense or passing touchdown just last week. So that you talk about how stingent that defense is as far as and being concerned for Dalvin Cook. Well, it's just as stingent, if not better, for the corners there and shutting that down. But I do understand because the second corner has been known to.
And I still think he's just asking if we think Jefferson is probably a good play and what we think of those two, right? I think he's just given a little bit of confidence. So for me, I don't know if I would. We're going to release this video for this Monday night matchup, so we'll give you a little bit more of insight there. Summy and I, basically, Summy dive deep into this. But he's kind of a boom bust. He's second in yards per route run among all wide receivers, so he's got the boom in him. I just don't know if I'd be banking on it this week. And as always, it's going to depend on your options. But once again, we talked about this game really low over under. Both these teams implied team totals very low. I think this is going to be a cold night in Chicago, and they're just trading blows in this one.
Emmanuel Sanders rest of season. Anything you're excited about there? On weigh-in,
usage has been so spotty. I don't know if you've got anything you want to add here, Johnny, but for me, I think it's going to be, every other week he's going to be a wide receiver 3, maybe a flex, but nothing really, special that you can bank on, especially with Michael Thomas back, Jared Cook in the lineup, Alvin Kamara there. I just don't know if you're going to be able to pick the games. I will say this schedule coming up, San Fran this week, Atlanta, Denver, Atlanta. Some really nice matchups, so he could be a flex guy for you, but I wouldn't think of anything more than that.
Last question here before jumping back into some of these news nuggets. Johnny, Stephen Drakes is asking tight ends. Mark Andrews, Mike Gesicki, full PPR.
I'm gonna still go with Mark Andrews here over Mike Gesicki. I know the matchup isn't fantastic, but once again, that defense for the Patriots hasn't been what it was in the beginning of the season. And I don't have enough confidence in Mike Gesicki this week to say start him over Mark Andrews. But if
Yeah, we know.
but you have a better matchup like Austin Hooper or something like that, then I wouldn't mind going that direction. But I wouldn't go with Gesicki.
Speaking of tight ends, Travis, Robert Tonyan rhymes with Funyan is questionable for Week 10 against the Jaguars. He's dealing with an ankle injury still. Keep an eye on the health of Tonyan coming into Sunday's game. But how are you taking a look right now at the rest of the pass catching options in Green Bay, as well as other tight end potentials here for the Pack?
Green Bay heavily favored in this game, but has the highest implied team total per Vegas, so they should continue to score. You worry that all of that may go to Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones, but I think Lazard, if he can get back healthy as a flex, MVS would be a desperation flex, and I really like Tonyan this week. It's a top 3 matchup against the Jaguars. If he gives it a go, I know he'll be a little hampered by the ankle, but I think that maybe with Lazard back in the lineup. Remember when Lazard was last playing, both he and Tonyan had touchdowns in the same game. They play the Saints on Sunday night, and I think that's a good sign that Lazard could open things up actually for more 11 personnel for the Packers, and they've been running a lot of 12, which means a lot of double tight ends, so other tight ends get looks. I think this could go to 11 personnel where you've got Tonyan in there as the receiving tight end and giving him more looks. So maybe a little big brain take there, but I really do like Tonyan rest of season. And in this landscape for tight end, you could do a lot worse than a guy who Aaron Rodgers has called an ascending talent or baby Kittle.
And you mentioned Lazard there. He could be coming back this week. It's a game time decision. Be sure to keep an eye on that. Probably lean away from starting him if you can. But exciting news for the Packers.
Great
Potentially.
matchup though too. So I understand wanting to flex him in there, but yeah, I would want to wait and see as well, just see kind of what the usage.
So moving over to Texas right now, where Houston running back David Johnson is not going to play Week 10. Johnny, we're going to have Duke Johnson filling in. Do you think this is a pretty seamless fill-in?
Yeah, I think he'll get a shot. Cleveland doesn't give up a whole lot to running backs. It's not the greatest matchup. However, he'll get the usage for an RB1, right? And I kind of like it as a revenge game here. So we'll see. A lot of people have been asking to get Duke Johnson a shot, again, an opportunity, because, all the metrics are there for him to be a really good running back in this league. He's just never been given the shot, and even going back to his Miami days in college. So I'm excited to see what he could do for sure. I would be playing him unless I have a better option, but I think he's a good minimum flex option. I think he has RB2 play this week with potentially RB1 if he can get in the end zone a couple times or once.
Over in Jacksonville, rookie wideout Laviska Shenault has been ruled out already against the Packers. This gives a little bit of a boost to DJ Chark, Keelan Cole. Travi, are you feeling excited at all with Jake Luton throwing passes in Jacksonville? Anything we should keep an eye out for
We
particular?
talked a little bit about the top of the show. DJ Chark is the one that you're excited about here. 12 targets, 7 catches, 146 yards, and a touchdown with Jake Luton. As Johnny likes to say, you're a glutton for Luton if you're a DJ Chark fan because you like what he's able to do. He pushes the ball down the field a whole lot more in one game, than Gardner Minshew has done in his past. And if DJ Chark is happy, you feel like the media, Jacksonville's PR person is going to be happy because he won't be out there bad-mouthing Luton because he's feeding him the ball. The other pass catchers, Laviska Shenault, Keelan Cole, Tyler Eifert, just don't really want any part of it. The secondary for Green Bay has been really tough. If you're going to give me a chance to score on them, I think it's going to be through their most talented weapon, and that's DJ Chark. So, yeah, I'm fine with Chark. I don't really want anybody else, though.
On DJ Chark, speaking of those Packers defensive backs, Jair Alexander is doubtful to play Week 10.
Did not practice at all this week, and he's been pretty much the best lockdown corner this year. Now, obviously, that's just been in a short sample size, but he's been out of his mind this year, and we love Jair Alexander. And the Packers are just notoriously conservative with their medical staff. We like to keep our players healthy for the stretch one. We spent a lot of years being really injured and really paying the price for it. So I think the medical staff is really conservative these times. And you look, I think it's fine. I think they'll do just fine against these receivers. But DJ Chark gets a huge upgrade with this one.
Sticking with defenses here and primo players dealing with injuries, Johnny, Joey Bosa of the Los Angeles Chargers is not going to play Week 10 against the Dolphins. He's recorded 4.5 sacks across 7 games this year. This is obviously a blow for the Chargers defense. I saw you drop them in our league of record. How are you feeling about the Chargers defense going up against a Tua-led Dolphins team this week, Week 10?
Yeah, they just have a lot of injuries. I don't feel confident in playing them at all. It's unfortunate what that defense could have been with all of their playmakers on defense. But we kind of see this a lot with the Chargers, right? They're kind of used to this, unfortunately. But I think that this is good for Tua, right? He doesn't have to worry about a guy like Joey Bosa coming off the edge. Gives him a little bit more time. So I do like that. I do want to mention on that same or on the opposite side of the defense, though, in this game, Miami, both of their their linebacker and then their best run defensive stopper on the D line, both tested positive for COVID, or they had the trace thing, so they're out this Sunday. So that's actually big news because that affects the running game for the Chargers, and so you're not exactly sure which running back it's going to be, but they should have a bigger day because of the linebacker being out and the D lineman. So sorry to hijack that for like 5 minutes to tell you guys that, but
no, I love it, man. Travie, I want to stick with the Chargers here real quick. We talked about this on our matchup show with the running back situation of if Justin Jackson is still out, is Kalen Ballage going to come back in and show us what he showed last week? How are you making sense right now with Justin Jackson not playing Week 10 against the Dolphins? What are you looking for? We know Josh Kelly's going to be involved. We know Eckler's still out. How are you playing this situation in Los Angeles?
I think you have to go with Ballage. Unfortunately, like it sounds really nasty. Johnny's not happy as this guy is basically the Johnny Game Time suck list founder, CEO is Kalen Ballage. Yeah. But Ballage, look, last week 39% of the snaps and still got 15 carries, scored a touchdown, got 3 targets. Joshua Kelly just seems to be the complimentary back no matter who's in there. He just seems to be the guy that comes in, thumps it a little bit here and there. He has had receptions. Last week he did pick up the receptions, but he seems to be the guy that they're just kind of change of pace guy. Yeah, yeah, pretty much. So unfortunately, for those that are anti-Ballage truthers like Johnny, you don't like admitting it, but this is a situation where Miami's not a terrible matchup, and if you're desperate for a wide receiver or a running back in your lineup, I would be okay with flex starting Kalen Ballage. I can't believe I said that.
One thing I'll say, all right, in my defense,
no, I think you're in the right.
No, I do think I'm in the right, and I agree. But I do want to say that if Kalen Ballage, hold on, you guys will agree with this. If Kalen Ballage once again goes out and has a baller day, then I have no idea. It is a proven fact that Adam Gase just destroys players, because it will be another case for a player to leave his team and ball out on another team where he looked like literally the worst football player in the history of football, and then to go and ball out on another team. That would say something about Adam Gase. So I'm just saying, I'm going to throw that out there. I'm going to put it out there.
For a man who's had so much said about him already in Adam Gase, it's amazing that we could come up with new ways to criticize his impact on the football team. But he just keeps providing more. We're in Thanksgiving season, it's coming up, and this man just continues to harvest for us.
Yeah.
More reasons to doubt and throw shade on Adam Gase's name. Moving over to Los Angeles, the Rams running back Daryl Henderson, he practiced on Thursday. He will play Week 10 against the Seahawks. Also a playmaker for the Rams, Cooper Kupp, dealing with a wrist and an oblique. He's overall just banged up. He's probably going to be playing as well. Johnny, how are you feeling about the playmakers here in Los Angeles going up against what should be a very explosive game versus Seattle?
Yeah, I mean, you'll play Henderson. It's not the greatest matchup. We've talked about this before. Seattle is a pass funnel, so actually their run defense is a little bit better than you would think. A lot of teams pass on them. That's where I expect this to go. So I actually love Cooper Kupp this week. I love Robert Woods this week. And I actually think that if you need a dart throw, you can even throw Reynolds out there because he's actually been seeing a huge uptick in targets lately. But yeah, so I'm fine with Kupp. I do think that he ends up going from things that I'm reading. I do believe he goes. And then Daryl Henderson. You're going to keep throwing this guy in your lineup. But once again, I am a little concerned because he keeps showing up on these reports with the thigh issues. He keeps coming out of games, which limits his upside. You've got the split carries there. So there's definitely some concern. There's some, yellow flags and caution cones, when you're rolling with Henderson. But he ends up producing at the end of the day for now. So you'll just keep using him for now.
Hey, Big Travie, you mentioned Jimmy Graham before. Just Incredible's asking about Jimmy Graham or Hunter Henry, a man with all the opportunity but just hasn't yet got it done. And Jimmy Graham now finding himself in a potentially opportunistic position.
Look, I understand. Man, this is ridiculous. I understand that Jimmy Graham has been good. He's been tight end 6. Like, I have to stop and think about this because he's been tight end 6. He's been good. But I'm still going Hunter Henry because I think there's a real case for positive regression for Hunter Henry. He's out there. He's running the snaps. He's running the routes. He's playing the snaps. He's getting targeted. He's just not scoring, which is a lot of it. He's just not putting it in the end zone when it's time. And, look, if this is a rainy game, this is a game where they're fighting for, it's supposed to be a close one against Miami. You could definitely see a Hunter Henry game here. And I honestly think Hunter Henry is a buy low as far as tight ends concerned, just based on some of the ancillary peripheral numbers that are there that make you think like positive regression is coming here.
It's really funny. You talk about you looking at data and like the majority of the time the data will lead you to the right answer. Now, will it always? No, it won't. But you look for the probability of some likelihood out. The outcome you're looking for, and I think Travis said it. All of the metrics for Hunter Henry to kind of have a second half bounce back are there. He should be better performing than what is being produced. So I do think that there is a nice second half for Hunter Henry.
I think so too. Jay Dizzle asks Shepard or Myers this week.
Give me Shepard. I know the matchup's pretty tough with the Eagles, but it's not as tough as what Myers is going to face in Baltimore. And Sterling Shepard's quietly been compiling some good games here. In 5 games that he's played, he's got double-digit PPR points in 4 of them. He's got 26 targets over his last 3 games. He's caught 20 of those. He's going to get Nickel Roby Coleman in Philadelphia, who's the slot corner, who's giving up 1.17 yards per route run. I think Shepard's a great play.
Travis just like saying that guy's name.
Said it like Nickel Roby Coleman.
Yeah, he said it like 3 times.
Names, man. Yeah. Hyphenated names just remind me of law firms.
They just roll off the tongue too, don't they? Sound good coming from the 1-800 number too.
Yeah.
We've got a question here from Darius Rice about streaming a defense. This week, would you rather start the Lions, the Vikings, the Chargers, or the Raiders? Raiders play the Broncos. Chargers play the... Just mentioned this.
Chargers play the Dolphins.
The Dolphins, yeah.
I would... Vikings play the Bears. I am going to say this. Johnny may have a little beef with this. We talked about it off air a couple nights ago, but J.J. Zacharyson made this point. Look, the Vikings the Bears have actually given up top 8 scores to the opposing defenses in the last couple weeks. You then look at the fact that like they're giving up their play calling. They're not going to have Montgomery. Vikings come into this game. You usually want to target teams that are at home, but you want to target teams that are in a low over-under for defenses when you're trying to stream. And this is a low over-under, super low, and the Vikings are favored. You get they're not a great defense, but they've been a little bit better over the last couple weeks, and they have a defensive-minded head coach who runs the football, controls the clock. I think there's a lot here to say the Vikings are at least one of the safer plays. The Chargers are fun because I think if they get up and put the pressure on Miami, you could see Miami turn the ball over into them. But I think that the Vikings are probably the safest play to me.
Cat's Pajamas asks about Dallas Goedert rest of season. Travis, I know you're a pretty good Goedert fan. Would you still recommend going for him in PPR?
Yeah, I love Goddard. I think Goddard obviously had the rough week back from injury, but then they had the bye. In the 2 weeks prior to his injury, had 17 targets in this offense. And one of those games, actually both of those games, were Zach Ertz healthy. No Zach Ertz in this lineup now. So you really like what's going on with Goddard rest of season. You really like how this offense has always leaned on the tight end. And he's a touchdown threat, which is big and for tight ends, especially this year.
I expect the Eagles to have a nice second half resurgence. They've got a good schedule coming up. They got their playmakers coming back healthy, and Sanders, Goddard, and getting that.
Whatever that's worth.
Yeah, I think Fulgham is now supplanted Alshon, but we'll see. We'll see. Who am I to judge? I haven't seen any potential gameplay with Alshon yet, but yeah, I'm excited for them. And Rieger's back healthy as well. I think this will be a fun second half for the Eagles.
We mentioned a little bit of the Dolphins. We talked earlier about how Preston Williams is going to be out. They're putting him on the injured reserve. Matt Breida is questionable. They've got a weird situation now going with Ahmed and with Jordan Howard. Johnny, right now, how are you feeling about the Miami Dolphins and their running back situation? And then I guess we got Parker and Gesicki now, who you'd be looking at more closely with the Preston Williams news.
Yeah, I think that there's a definite connection between Parker and Tua, so I like that. I'm interested to see the Gesicki. I do like the analysis says that it should be Gesicki now who should see the targets with Williams out. But again, it's always that little you're sticking your toe in the water and trying to feel the temperature to see if you could fully get in there. I don't know if I'm ready quite yet, but again, on paper it looks like Gesicki should get that. But yeah, I think that rest of season you're looking at Gesicki potentially being able to carry you at a position that's like very limited. But yeah, not this week.
Touching quickly here, Travis, on the running back situation in New England. Damien Harris, we still haven't gotten a clear answer. He was limited on Thursday, dealing with a chest issue. Sony Michel's been cleared but not taken off IR. Rex Burkhead, James White, Jonah Gray could come back. Who the heck knows?
Dion Lewis got traded over there back again. Danny Woodhead's coming out of retirement. The whole gang's getting back together. Look, you can't start any of these guys. Baltimore's defense isn't even a great matchup, even if we knew some guy was getting 20 touches. We don't know that, and it's not going to happen. So don't start any of the backs. Fade them all. It's Baltimore. They're heavy touchdown. They're more than a touchdown underdog in this game. You don't want any part of it.
Yeah. Johnny, anything to add about Michael Thomas? We're jumping over to New Orleans right now. Michael Thomas, he came back. He was healthy-ish last week. He's in there for them. Avoided setbacks. That's the big piece you're happy with there. How are you feeling right now about Michael Thomas? We talked about Emmanuel Sanders. We talked a little bit about Jared Cook. Obviously, Alvin Kamara is locked in. Are you feeling confident now in Michael Thomas? Is he back for you?
Yeah, he's fully back for me. If you can, I would go and try to trade for him right now. He didn't have the greatest game on his first game back. Maybe people are like, oh, he's not going to be the same guy. The schedule moving forward is absolutely delightful, especially for if you're a wide receiver one like Michael Thomas. I think rest of season, he has a very good. I mean, if you're in PPR, I don't know if you're in a standard league if he can match the yardage that Devontae Adams is putting up on a weekly basis. But if you're in a PPR, I do think it's a little bit closer as who will truly be the wide receiver one down the stretch between Michael Thomas and Adams. But yeah, I like Michael Thomas moving forward.
Big Travi, you had mentioned about Wayne Gallman. We're here at that point in the show. Devontae Freeman has been placed on the injured reserve with ankle, hamstring, whatever. How are you feeling about Wayne Gallman? Alfred Morris is over there. Dion Lewis has been there the whole year, but he looks like his pass catching role is carved out. Are you feeling any of these running backs right now this week moving forward behind that absolutely stellar offensive line? Very sarcastic there.
Yeah, a lot of facetiousness in talking about the Giants, and this is a bad matchup. I mean, Philly's allowing the 9th fewest points per game to running backs. They're allowed the 8th fewest rushing yards of any team in 2020. But Wayne Gallman has been quietly getting it done. 14 touches per game. He's scored in 3 straight. He's not ideal, but he gets on the RB3. flex radar with you because of the volume that he's going to get. And, you could be chasing points a little bit in this game. But the Giants will Vegas thinks this will be close. So the Giants will score, and Gallman getting down to the goal line means you could make your day right there. So
keep an eye out for that. Johnny, sticking with the running backs here, Michael P. Ryan, New York Football Jets rookie running back, is going to be the featured back the remainder of the season to try and see if he can be a starting running back in the NFL right now. Kind of an unfair again for that first year, round 3, round 4 type running back, but he's going to be getting more volume. Are you intrigued at all about his fantasy prospect moving forward?
I mean, it's the Jets and it's a starting running back, so sure, if you want to take a throw on him, put him on your bench. I'm not starting him anytime soon, but yeah.
That was a good take. I like that. I want to open it up both to you here. We're talking about the Eagles right now, and there's a lot of fantasy relevant, NFL relevant, kind of stuck in the in-between world as the Eagles. We think they should be good. They're not. They're still leading the division, but the division is atrocious. Strange world right now in Philadelphia. They're getting Alshon Jeffrey back to make it even stranger. We know Travis Fulgham. This player is now looking legitimate, and we're assuming that he's the number one. We got Rieger, though, who's also looking really good, rookie wide receiver. Miles Sanders should be coming back. Zach Ertz, who should be awesome, is not. Dallas Goedert is filling in. Such a strange dynamic, but I feel like there's juice left in the fruit, Johnny. Who are you looking at right now? What are you keeping an eye on for this week going up against the Giants and rest of season as playoffs are looming?
All of that. I'm Fulgham. Yeah. I'm fading Alshon. I'm not interested in that. I don't think that's gonna do it. It's Rieger, it's Fulgham, it's Goddard, and it's Miles Sanders. And then Wentz. I do think Wentz becomes in the discussion for a weekly starter now moving forward with all these healthy pieces and the schedule. The schedule's nice as well.
Yeah, I think that's true too. Hey, Travi, I want to talk to you about Pittsburgh. I know you've kept a close eye on them throughout the years. Steelers coach Mike Tomlin expects Big Ben, who's been dealing with some COVID flirtation, to be activated on Saturday. He hasn't practiced all week, though. How are you feeling right now about Big Ben and then the other weapons alongside Juju Smith-Schuster, who did practice fully, and Deontay Johnson and Claypool, who have been all over this year?
It's a little bit of a risk to play Ben this week, obviously, because of the lack of practice, but you're probably locking him in there. We've talked a little bit about some of the guys that you'd have to stream. Maybe we've talked a little bit about Teddy Bridgewater, some of these other situations you don't really want to be in. I like Big Ben over guys like Drew Lock. I like him over Derek Carr. I like him over some of these guys just because of the weapons that are around him. But you got to remember his ceiling's a little bit lower. This is a dink and dunk offense that plays to their defense a lot now. They have very talented wide receivers, and this Cincy team is probably going to let up a few big plays to Big Ben in this offense. But I don't know. You could be just as surprised if the 3 touchdowns that come from Pittsburgh are through the running game, or 2 of them are through the running game. So I think that's the situation you're in. You always live in a world where the ceiling isn't the 5 touchdown games we've seen out of Ben before. But I think he's a fine QB1 this week if he goes on Sunday.
Jumping here to Whisper Nation's questions in the chat. Again, thanks y'all for being with us here on this Friday afternoon. Make sure you hit that the thumbs up. Give us those likes and subscribes. Helps us grow and do what we love to do. And if we don't get to your questions now, make sure you join the live show an hour and a half before kickoff on Sunday morning. We'll have new news to consider and help you work through any of those last-minute lineup questions. But here we've got Stephen Drake's asking flex Ballage or Mooney, full point PPR. How do you feel about Ballage or Mooney in a full point PPR? Which one would you rather go with?
Probably go with Ballage. Darnell Mooney facing, I guess the Vikings have been pretty bad on in the secondary. So, but I would still trust a running back's usage over Mooney, the wide receiver too, and that means you're going to have to tie yourself to Nick Foles to get it to Darnell Mooney, and Nick Foles has just been horrendous. I think the only reason Nick Foles is still playing is because Mitch Trubisky's hurt.
Yep.
The point. Hey, Johnny, Samuel Rojas is asking about flexing Marvin Jones this week. He knows he's very touchdown dependent. Obviously, Kenny Galladay is out. Shark and DeAndre Hopkins are his primaries. Do you feel okay about Marvin Jones being a flex play this week?
I mean, I don't like it Yeah, he's very true. It's a touchdown dependent kind of play, and I if I could go elsewhere, I would. I'm just not a big fan of Marvin Jones. I haven't seen him really. Every time he gets this kind of opportunity to kind of show us that he can be solidified in our starting lineup, it's always a disappointment. So yeah, ultimately though, if that's who you've got because you got everyone else on a bye on your team, I've seen it before. I think you could do a lot worse than Marvin Jones. But I do think that there is potentially a lot better available on your waiver wire as well.
Yaz is asking about Miles Sanders, get him back in the lineup, or roll with Curtis Samuel, who's been used in so many interesting ways for Carolina, running back, pass catchers. Teddy's been throwing the ball kind of short. What do you think, Big Travie, on this? Who would you rather roll out with right now, Miles Sanders or Curtis Samuel?
Yeah, look, I think we made the case for Teddy Bridgewater in that specific matchup, but I do not trust Carolina against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is going to be pissed off. Like they just got embarrassed on Sunday night. You know they're going to want to come out defensively and shut things down, and I think that would include Curtis Samuel. And Miles Sanders said he's 100% ready to stack up those wins. They gave him the bye week and a couple weeks before to get ready. I think you got to start Miles Sanders. He's been one of the few pieces in Philadelphia you could count on each and every game that he's played. And I think he's going to continue that this week against the Giants.
Johnny, we're talking about San Francisco right now. We know Deebo Samuel's not going to play. We talked about the explosive possibilities Brandon Ayuk brings week in, week out. We haven't touched so much right now, though, on the halfback world where Mostert is still out. Tevin Coleman's not going to play. How good are you feeling about Jerick McKinnon, who came back last week, had a pretty darn productive game with a limited backfield?
Yeah, I like him. I mean, the matchup isn't the greatest matchup, but I do think that he will get from what I'm reading, that whole like tired leg thing. I still don't understand what that is because it's like not
So
necessarily
basically, when you have legs and they get tired, you then
yeah.
have tired legs.
Yeah, apparently, right. And so I don't know how that affects necessarily you running, but apparently he's all over. He's done with it. The tired legs have gone away. He no longer has tired legs, and he is good to go. So I'm good with rolling him out there. I think he has RB2 upside, low end RB1 upside because of the system. But I don't think that the matchup would dictate him to be able to get there. I do think he is a solid play this week, though.
We touched on Seattle quite a bit already, so we don't need to jump through too much, but I just want to confirm with y'all that whatever starting running back Seattle has is a fine play. If that's Chris Carson, that means he's probably legit healthy enough to roll out. You start him. Carlos Hyde's not looking very promising, and Homer might have regressed a little bit. So it would be DJ Dallas potentially getting fired up again, most likely as your primary running back if Chris Carson is out. And
Almost
then
dropped him last night in the listener league, almost. And then I was like, no, I'm just going to wait on this news with Chris Carson. Thank God I did.
we'll see. And then you're starting. We know that Jalen Ramsey said he's not going to shadow DK Metcalf. Obviously, he's a very good cornerback,
I'm
but you're
calling
not steering.
BS. I'm calling BS.
Either way, you're still starting DK and you're
Mhm.
still starting Tyler Locket.
I was
Russell
looking at this. DK has only. Hold on, let me confirm this real quick so I don't just say something. But I'm pretty sure DK has only once gone under 10 fantasy points this season, and it was against Adrian Peterson, or not Adrian, Patrick Peterson. Excuse me. It was the only game I believe. But let me look this up because I'm fairly certain that's what it is.
I'll just say this: I'm really excited. That's probably one of my favorite
standard.
games on the schedule. Is the Seattle Seahawks versus the Rams, and that matchup in particular, DK Metcalf versus Ramsey. I'm going to be watching with some popcorn for sure.
Yeah.
Be a fun one. Hey, Travis, I wanted to ask you about Antonio Gibson, who returned to practice on Thursday, got in a full session. No issues, no concerns, Coach Ron Rivera said. How confident are you in Antonio Gibson from a fantasy perspective this week?
Personal level, I think I'm going to try the reverse psychology situation here and say I am not confident at all in Antonio Gibson versus the best matchup on paper, the Detroit Lions for running backs. No, that is, if you read between the lines, I'm really excited about Antonio Gibson against the Lions. I think this is look, what we've seen from Antonio Gibson is he's actually the first and second down back who can occasionally catch some passes, which is wild for a guy that was a converted wide receiver. But he's got good speed and burst, and his pass blocking has not been very great. So they've continued to put in J.D. McKissick ahead of him on third down. This is a game against the Lions without Kenny G, with a little bit of a banged up Stafford, where Vegas actually agrees that the Washington football team will stay competitive in this game, which means game script should go his way. Good matchup should go his way. A lot of up arrows pointing there for Antonio Gibson this week. I'm excited about it.
This is the last bit of news and nuggets before we answer some more questions in the live chat. This one here is going to Johnny, though. It's about Mike Evans, wide receiver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who was open on Sunday night, according to Bruce Arians, but was just not able to catch a pass. He didn't get targeted. He was open, said Arians. Sounds like a lot of criticism going to Tom Brady. How are you feeling about Mike Evans' rest of season as well as the Tampa Bay playmakers?
I mean, it's still a wait and see. I don't feel confident in saying I know which one is going to be on a week to week. I think it's going to be a week to week matchup basis. I mean, of the three, I think I'm least confident in Mike Evans because we've seen Tom Brady really only likes to throw it to you if you're like really wide open, and that's not Mike Evans' game. Mike Evans is you throw it up to me and I'll go up and get it, and so that has me concerned. But there are some really nice matchups down the road as well. So I think that you're holding, if you've got any of these wide receivers, I think you're holding for now and hoping, that your guy is potentially the guy that ends up leading you down the stretch. But my honest opinion is I think it's Antonio Brown is probably the highest upside guy. I think Chris Godwin is the lock to say that he's going to be the most sturdy down the road. And I think Mike Evans is probably the least likely to be, a top 15 wide receiver rest of the way, just based on how they run things. But you never know; it could change week to week. You just got to play the matchups, and that's why you can't really do much with Mike Evans right now. You can't trade him. You got to just keep him and play the matchup.
Bay is such a weird team this year. They're smashing fools and then getting smashed on, and to play with crazy weapons. I don't know. It's such a strange team. I can't wait to see how the Bucs finish out the year from a fantasy and NFL perspective. Yaz Whedon's asking about Montgomery playing Monday Night Football. What's your gut say? Is Montgomery going to play on Monday?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think he's probably out. We'll know tomorrow, though. That's the good thing, is you'll know on Saturday what's going to happen, because he has to get it in time to make it happen. So I would doubt it.
Ask us again Sunday morning, 90 minutes before kickoff. We're going live on YouTube, Whisper Nation. Join us there. Get us all your last-minute lineup questions. We love to tackle those. Last question here. Kasif Mustafa in PPR. Should I start Leonard Fournette or Mike Davis? I'm going the latter. I mean, it's guaranteed.
I would go
probably
Fournette.
go Fournette.
Yeah, I would go Fournette.
Yeah, I think, and I know he's splitting time, but like we've seen Jones get doghoused a couple times, and they might just finally say no to that. But the big thing for Fournette is I believe he's had 6 targets and 6 catches, or I'm sorry, 6 catches over his last few games. So he's getting used in the passing game, and then this matchup against Carolina is a smash spot for him. Remember, that's the 70-yard touchdown run he ripped off earlier this year was against Tampa Bay, or was against Carolina. So I actually like Fournette in this matchup. They're touchdown favorites. Everything kind of points for Fournette to have a decent game here.
She takes there. Yaz is out of ice cream. Should he go to the store? It is raining. Weather concerns.
Look, when you need that ice cream, you got to get it. Just be careful. Make sure your wipers are in good condition. You don't want to be out there with bad wipers. That's where I'm at now. I live in LA, so it never rains. But every time it does, I get a little bit nervous because my wipers have been bad for like 3 years. I need to change those.
Oh,
if you're looking to be, you can always Postmates it.
Yeah, that's
a possibility.
True.
You can.
$14 for a $4 thing of ice cream. It is an option. It's there for you.
Yeah, if you want to be that guy, which I've done several times, and it's good while you're eating it.
Yeah.
Until you're staring at the $20 carton of ice cream.
I was sick one time, and I just learned about Postmates, and I got a thing of grapes, chocolate chips, and raspberries from Postmates, and I loved it. It was that moment. It was perfect.
There you go. I think we did miss this one. I wanted to ask you because this is fun. First place, Sonny says first place in Superflex League. Trade deadline is today. Would you trade Herbert and James Conner for Lamar Jackson and Eckler? I think I do this.
That's some fun upside on the other side.
James Conner been struggling the last few weeks. He's touching the ball fewer. What do you do? Lamar Jackson has a nice schedule. We talked about that earlier in the show. Lamar Jackson has a nice schedule coming up.
Wait, I'm sorry. What's the deal?
Wow, you don't. Of course. So you're trading away. You're trading away Herbert and James Conner for Lamar Jackson and Austin Eckler. Who did you see the video that Austin Eckler posted today?
Yeah,
saying
I see the video.
He looks good.
He ran.
He ran fast.
Yeah, he did run. Hamstrings kind of scare me, but I guess he's running fast. That's fine.
I guess he's running fast.
the schedules for the Chargers pretty good, especially in the playoffs. Yeah, I guess I would probably do that. Herbert actually may have a better ceiling than Lamar this year. Just because of the way Lamar's not they just don't need to do it. They don't need to throw like they did last year. They're not as dynamic of an offense. And Connor's fine. Connor will be fine. He's going to continue to get.
I don't know, dude. Look at this. Lamar Jackson coming up here. He's got Tennessee.
I know. I'm the one who talked
Pittsburgh.
about his schedule earlier. I understand the schedule's good. The guy hasn't thrown for over 275 yards but once, and he did it in week 1.
He can run.
He can run. Yeah. So can Austin Eckler, apparently.
Yeah. So it's great.
Cats pajamas. Ronald Jones or Henderson?
I would probably go Ronald Jones.
Yeah.
Henderson's potentially one of 3. Henderson's got a real shot at being the lead. We just said Fournette was the better number.
I keep getting crap for this, but Seattle's a really good run defense because all you do is throw on them. They just don't end up running on them. I think that I would maybe lean towards Ronald Jones here.
There you have
We've got a question here about Josh Alexander asking decimated at wide receiver. Who'd you say is the best sleeper wide receiver? Definitely send us a screenshot of who's on your waiver wire, who's available in your free agent pool. I know there's somebody. There's always a wide receiver who can come in and get points. I promise you that. Send us a screenshot.
Yep.
On this. Gentlemen, that's the end of our questions here. Anything you'd like to share with Whisper Nation or anything that I missed? Anything you want to bring before we close this Friday News and Nuggets episode down?
No, I think we did it. We rocked and rolled. We went a little bit later with you guys today, but we had a lot of news to get through, and we appreciate you guys rocking with us. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and catch us tomorrow. I'm sorry, not tomorrow. Sunday morning, hour and a half before the games start. We will be going live and giving you all the actives and inactives and letting you know what to do with your lineup yet again.
We'll get the Saturday show here going maybe the next week. I'm still recovering from last week's.
Yeah, got a lot of props from people on the Fireside Saturday we did there. A lot of people liked it. Big fans of Potter. We'll be bringing the Saturday show back, whether it's Fireside, Poolside, Strong Side, Left Side, whatever. We're doing it.
Yeah. Potter will bring the energy.
Yeah, he always does.
Yeah.
Well, if that's it, make sure you liked and subscribe. Join us 90 minutes before kickoff on Saturday. I'm Austin Sear. There's Johnny Game Time Hicks. We got Big Travie in the house. We're the Fantasy Whispers. See you next time.
Peace.
Are we still alive?
Probably.
Yeah, we
I'm
were.
falling asleep, dude.